So this was science. So we speak about science today. We speak about semiotics. Okay. Our first sign, as an example, is a video sign, because our two members are not here, and they are present by presentative signs they have created. So Ariane gives us the introduction.
I am here to give you an introduction on structuralistic linguistics. Since it's linguistics, let's look at the words that make it up. Structuralism is a strand of philosophy that says we can understand a larger system by looking at the small parts. And to understand the small parts, the details, we need to refer them to the bigger overarching system. So to understand my solo, you need to look at the small parts. You need to look at the juggling, at the movement, and at the costume, which in my case is a skirt. 2. Linguistics is the scientific study of language, the analysis of its form, meaning, and context. So structuralistic linguistics looks at the language by looking at the small parts, for example, the words, in the bigger context, in the entire system of the language. They say that every cultural system can be understood by analyzing language. So there is Ferdinand de Saussure. He is a philosopher Swiss, around 1900. He started this whole way of thinking by defining a system of language, or by finding a system of language. He looks at the language in 2 different ways. He says there is the langue, the system of the language, and the parole, the individual use of this language. So the langue refers to the system. What is my form? Am I a dancer, or am I a juggler? Do I speak English, German, French? The parole is the individual use. How do I use all these things? How do I put them together? How do I use my juggling? Is it special? Modern linguistics refines this way of thinking. They are making the difference between competence and performance. The competence is referring to my innate capacity and potential, to my skill. What can I do? The performance is, how do I use what I can do? So now we're referring to the small parts, to the words. Ferdinand de Saussure makes 2 different parts of the word, 2 different ways of thinking about the word. There is the signifier, or in French, signifiant. It's the form of the word, its sound. The skirt, in German, rock, in French, jupe. And then there is the signified, the thing that it's pointing at, in French, signifier, the concept, the meaning. In this case, the skirt refers to a piece of clothing. The signifier can be, again, restructured in 2 different ways. There is the denotative sign and the connotative sign. The denotative sign is the reference to the realism, to what it is actually. So this piece of clothing is what the word skirt refers to. The connotative sign is what we might think of when we hear or see skirt. So we might think of a female, of a woman. We might think of dancing, of turning. But my colleague Atic is going to tell you where that.
Okay, so she explained a little bit about this, and for me to understand it well, I prefer to see. I prefer to really see what is what we are trying to talk about. So I have some examples about about the same. So she also referred about signifier, and for me, signifier, this some image, it was in a practical way. For me, I educate the signifier in the mouth. How you say the word table? How is this the word? How work? In every language, we have words for to describe the same thing that in our imagination we have the picture. And this is the and this is the I look myself. Yeah, the other thing is the signified.
Go left.
Sorry. Yeah. And so the other thing is the signified. That is the concept. So for me, when your sense, your mouth, your eyes, your ears, hear the word or something, in your imagination you create a picture of the real thing, not what the real thing could mean. Just what is the word. But the no. The interesting thing could be if you imagine in your head the word. This is the signifier. It's not the signifier. Do you understand? Am I clear? Okay, so this is just some examples of signs that we all agree that was the meaning. So now we go to the book. And I'm going to talk about the difference between semiotics and semiology. Semiology is the part of the semiotics that analyze the text from what the text says, without the meaning. So we have this book, or maybe not, called Codex Seraphinianus, and it's here. And it's a book. It's a book created by an Italian architect that he wants from us that we have the same sensation that with a kid take a book from adults when they don't know how to read. You know, so he create a language, imaginary language, there's not really sense about it, just something that you can imagine that it looks like something real, but it is not. So we can read this book by the semiotics, but we cannot read it by the semiology. Okay. And now I will jump in some examples that I find learning and studying about this. This is the last one. So I will send you this book because it's really nice to read about it. I try to understand or analyze my last performance, called Echo, between these things. And I would like to ask you about what this picture, when you see this picture, you get a meaning, and it's a handstand. It's just a handstand. But when you see, it's gonna be difficult. No, it's fine. Sorry. But when you see the big picture, you really have another meaning, a biggest meaning than just a handstand. So we use one part of the technique to give a message. Another one also for me. No, abre todo el vídeo pero que no se ponga play. Yeah. For example, we play in this performance about the meaning of teeth pressure. when you see a tip brusher, you think, okay, it's too clean. But for us, yeah, wait.
I hate to say this, but
I don't know if you're watching.
I hate to say this, but
For us, we play the tip brusher is the meaning of compromise. When you are starting a relationship and you put your tip brusher in his her house, it means that it's something like a relationship for us. So maybe for some people it's too much, and when you find a tip brusher in your bathroom, it's too much. So we try to play about it. And now it comes Raul.
I'm getting very good at this. Sorry. It's the first time now.
Now we'll talk about Raul. He was a researcher of the dance, and he was looking to decodificate the dance, to decodificate all the movement that he was feeling that they were kind of limiting the dancers. And in this search of decodificating the dancer, he created some kind of language, put together all kind of possibilities of movements, levels, directions. So he created one system of notation. The level notation system was divided in a space and a body in general. So there was one item that was a direction and level of the movement. So indicates where it's going and which level is using. So later was the part of the body doing the movement. So which part, he has some kind of symbol for each part: the head, the hands, the hips, the feet, knee. He has a symbol for each part. Later he created duration of the movement. How much is the duration? This was connected Western way to write the music. And later he created the dynamic and the quality of the movement. So here were different aspects. The space, who was there, can be direct or indirect. The weight can be strong or light. The time, that can be something suddenly or sustained. And the flow, that can be free or bound. Okay, now I will talk about Raul. Raul created a completely system of training for actors. He created 12 positions to have the actors to show in the scene what they wanted to show in a natural way. So the actors of Raul, they were people who were working all day and they have not so much time to train. So Raul created this system to make easier and more efficient for the actors to show in the natural way the emotions and the ideas that they wanted to show to the public. So, for example, Stanislavski was thinking about some methodology of feel and later do, and Raul was thinking about do and later feel. So his system was created in the physical way, and how to find the emotions, the images, and all that the theater was asking for through the movement and to go to the emotions. He was thinking the human body as a machine and the actor as a machinist.
So connected with what Raul just explained, I would like to mention Barry Preston Dunlop, that she was one of the leaders in the works of Lava. Quoting her biography, Valerie Preston was a pioneer of the development of choreological studies. She received her training from Rudolph Laban in Manchester, and where she got a diploma at what today is the Trinity Laban Conservatory for Music and Dance. She also studied with Lisa Ullmann, Albrecht Kunutz, and Kurios in Germany, Essen. In the 60s, she teaches specialist courses and dances and notation, Laban notation, and she also got a master's in movement studies and a PhD in choreology. For many years, she was teaching and researching at the Laban Center of Movement, where she is now a consultant. Her research established choreological studies as a key discipline for the integrated practical theoretical studies of dance and theater art. She has many publications, but one of the main ones, like I would say, is like Dance and the Performative, a choreological perspective. Laban and Beyond. In this book, she explores the interaction of the spectator and performer through a choreological perspective, and also applies the concept of choreological perspective to different examples like ballet technique and ballet teaching. Also, the one and famous Looking at Dance from 1928, a choreological perspective on choreography, book that we all know that we must read. Going back to the semiotic analytics related to the language of art, I would like to talk about the notative sign and the connotative sign. The notation is a word literal meaning, Ariane said, right? It's the definition that we can find in a dictionary of any word. Connotation is the word underlying, the words underlying meaning. It's all the stuff that we associate with a word. It's the emotional reaction that we have, that a word can involve. For example, it's like a very simple example, the word home. The meaning of home is a house. House is a house. But a home has like a good feeling associated to it. It gives, it's warm, it's comfort, it's happiness, it's protection, it's family. It has, yeah, it has, it's a mortgage, I don't know, but it has a lot of that, those words they don't have anything to do with the word house, right? So, to relate it to dance, I want to share my experience. It's like yesterday I told you I did a piece in Germany last year about isolation. The main concept was to put isolation, how isolation is nowadays in our life. And we live in a world where we have like media, we are surrounded by a lot of information, but we have this isolated, but we can be isolated sometimes. So, very quickly, what I did a task asking the dancers to give movements for isolation. And everyone got different movements. And I mean, some of them were positive, some of them were negative. So for each person that related to dance in the movement, you could also get a different denotation of a movement. The funny thing is that this summer I was in America doing a workshop about that piece. So I wanted to make the connection doing the same task, just to teach the piece afterwards. When I did that task, I got like a completely different result, a completely different movement than the one that I got in Germany. Meaning that the connotative signs change not only personally, but also culturally, in the society where we are.
Okay, and this that Jorge has used in a performative frame is actually what he did, developing myth on a sign. So now we speak about the mythology of semiotics, mythology and science. Roland Barthes was a French philosopher. He occupied a lot with this terminology, and he insisted on debating and representing how can a sign be interpreted in many different ways because of our different approach and different need to construct a connotative meaning on the specific sign. So myth is a constructed communication system where the construction is based on a misuse of the sign in order to represent an alternative truth. A very specific example that we have in Roland Barthes is the wine, a glass of red wine, which is a delight for the mass consuming industry. But actually, if we drink a lot of wine, we're not so well in our head. Also, another misuse, a beautiful cigarette. We smoke and we are great delight. All the commercials are really with a cigarette, but if we smoke a lot of cigarette, we die. Not this way, another. So actually, a stolen language is created upon a sign which originally had a more or less common connotative meaning for all of us. There are four very important points in this myth of a sign. One is that when we create myth on a sign, it is very hard for us to resist communicating an ideology. An example, let's say 1984. So an author used 1984 as the title of a book. And 2 days ago, 1 day ago, I'm not so sure, we had here a speech about sociology, and at some point he mentioned 1984, Big Brother. So we can't resist using signs, creating myths on the signs, and then accumulating ideology based on the sign. A second very interesting issue is that the myth can be defeated by another myth. So someone created a beautiful statue in the United States, a woman holding a torso with a nice crown indicating freedom, right? Now when we think about this sign, what do we all think about? America, capitalism. So the myth has been defeated by myths, by myths, by myths, by myths, because that thing was built at a specific social political frame, and the political social frame created myth upon the sign. Another very interesting thing is
Olga,
that
1 minute. 1 minute.
the other thing is that we change the meaning, and in this way we disconnect the meaning from history. Because the myth can be free of politics, it can become reality and a political actuality that originally it was not real, it was fake. And for this, I don't know if it's going to read it. We see this. What do we see? Not clear.
Body.
Body.
A body.
Body, something in the back, okay. Let's go to the next photo.
The moon.
Let's go next. Okay, I will skip that example. I will give you another example. That's very close to that example. Okay, what is this?
Well,
Okay,
you can hide it.
okay. This is a sign that occurred in a specific time zone. Before that, it could be like, hey, how are you? High five, right? Not a good example, but it's a brief example for what I would like to show. So, yes, here we have a hug. We have a hug that is supportive to a person in need. But also, we have also this very beautiful Asian sign, which meant prosperity and good luck. But also, okay, but also, okay, but also,
Back there, there is a
oh,
no,
there
no,
is
no.
the final one. We have, I'm really sorry for this. I think you all know what we want to speak about.
Yeah.
It's plastic, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So a person used this terminology of prosperity as a constant infinity winning. He gave specific colors to it, and he made it the flag of a political party.
That was it.
That was it.
Good.
This was the biggest challenge of everything.
Good, guys. Thank you very much. Talks, questions, remarks?
Wir sprechen schon.
Yeah. We were like, we were trying to speak like super fast. I mean, it's difficult, you know, like listen to people, you know, the other videos and everything.
No questions.
No questions?
I mean, maybe kind of a more defined question, but just in general, because I'm curious, how would you integrate the study of semiotics into a creation process?
That's exactly what I would try to show through these photos, is that I believe that in a performative frame we can use signs and fuse into them a different myth in order to communicate our perception of reality in totality. And I think that's what Mendelssohn did, but in his own specific choice. So Mendelssohn, for instance, took signs from reality, over-exaggerated them in order to show to the audience that this is reality and it's not good. An example. I would use it in such a way. Also, I would use it as a very structural tool. So the solo fragment I showed yesterday had this tool a lot. It was the sign of the word interpreted in the sign of the movement.
I also use some of this like an exercise. For example, when you're improvising, just moving, and somehow someone says stop, and you stop in one group, and the other people have to say what this photo means for you. So for different people, it has different meaning. And about what people say, you have to develop about what was this movement, what they say, not what you was moving.
Can I ask something? How much do you think, I don't know, it's just a question, I have no idea, that the deconstruction of I always think of it as a web of meanings around something, how much does it have to be conscious? Like if you just, like you showed the hug, if you repeated that image in a different framework that gave it a different emotional response, do you think our understanding of that symbol would just subtly shift?
Yes.
You know, like how obvious or conscious does it have to be? Or yeah, it's just a question.
That is the connection between phenomenology and semiotics. Then we begin to do some cooking.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yes, well done. Next.